Warriors trade bomb? Bags packed. Who's leaving? If you're a Warriors fan, I know what it's like. You open your phone and it seems like every day there's a new rumor. And the feeling is always the same. Who's leaving now? Today the story is serious. There are bags packed behind the scenes, and a trade could explode at any moment. And I will explain to you what is fact, what is speculation, and what this changes for the team. Stay with me, because you will understand who is closest to leaving, why, and what would be the best scenario for the Warriors to avoid losing the season in detail. Just when we think the Golden State Warriors have experienced it all, another one of those moments comes when you look at the screen, take a deep breath and think, this can't be happening now. Because there is a type of news that moves fans in a different way. It's not just about winning or losing a game. It's about direction. It's about identity. It's about what the team is trying to be from now on, while still trying to be, at the same time, what it has always been. And I want to talk to you calmly, like we do here at Warriors Family TV, because the weather in the Bay Area isn't heavy because of the fog. What weighs heavily is the feeling that a turning point is being drawn right before our eyes. The season had already had its ups and downs, the cast had already been discussed, but suddenly the conversation changed tone. It stops being, what's missing to fit in, and it becomes, who's going to leave? And when the topic becomes, who is going to leave, it is because something within the team's organism is asking for immediate adjustment. The name at the center of this maelstrom is Jonathan Kuminga, a player that a lot of people looked at and said, this is the next step. The high draft pick, the body, the explosion, the ability to attack the basket, the idea of a future in which the Warriors would continue to compete without relying solely on a core that already has so many battles on its back. However, over time, what was expected became noise. Noise of minutes, snapping noise, confidence noise. And when this noise starts to get too loud, it doesn't just stay in the stands. He crosses the locker room. He arrives at the board. It reaches the most well-informed journalists in the league. And then, suddenly, what was a behind-the-scenes conversation becomes a headline. Reports indicate that Kuminga wants a change. And I know how this hits those who follow the team closely, because it gives the feeling that we are losing part of a plan that hasn't even had time to become reality yet. It's as if you were watching a movie, and, in the middle of the plot, they removed an important character and put another in its place before you understood why that first character was so essential. And the fans' first reaction is to try to find a logic that makes this hurt less. Maybe it's just pressure. Maybe it's negotiation. Maybe it's just smoke. But when big people in the press confirm that there is indeed a real nuisance, we need to stop treating it as noise and start treating it as a signal. The part that draws the most attention is the context. It's not a player asking for a trade after a huge streak as a starter, without discussing it with anyone on a whim. What we are talking about is an environment in which he feels without space, without protagonism, without perspective. And here I'm not asking you to choose a side right away. I'm asking you to look at the entire photograph. Because on the team's side, there is a logic. Stephen Curry is still at an elite level, the clock doesn't stop, and the Warriors have learned throughout the dynasty to be impatient with anything that seems to take away a real chance of fighting for the title. On the player's side, there is another logic. The career is short. The athlete wants minutes, wants a defined role, wants to feel that he is part of the solution and not an experiment kept in a drawer. And that's exactly where it hurts. Because this story is not just about a name in a possible exchange. It's about the message that the Warriors send when a young man with potential finds himself so far from the plan that he wants to leave. We saw this franchise build a rare culture, a culture in which talents flourished, in which development seemed to be part of the DNA, in which the team found ways to transform players into winning pieces. And, therefore, when the situation reaches this point, the question becomes inevitable. Is the problem the player, or is the problem the fit, or is the problem the moment? Maybe it's a little bit of everything. And perhaps that is precisely what makes the situation so delicate. Because fans are divided for very understandable reasons. There are people who look at Kuminga and see the spark, see an athlete who, with sequence and confidence, can become a force on both sides of the court. And there are people who look and see inconsistency, see defensive lapses, see hasty decisions, and think, if we're going to win now, I need someone ready, not a promise. But both of these readings can be true at the same time. A player can have real potential and still not be ready for the demands of a team that lives on the edge of demand. And a team can have an urgency to win and still regret giving up their future too soon. The point is that the market clock is ticking, and when the trade deadline approaches, things pick up speed. What was "let's see later" became "we have days, not months." And the Warriors' front office, which has already experienced historic decisions, is now faced with one of the most symbolic. What is worth more at this moment, keeping a young asset trying to mature in the midst of chaos, or transforming this asset into someone who will immediately help Curry not waste another season? It is in this scenario that proposals and rumors begin to appear from all sides. One of them, much commented on, puts Kuminga in a negotiation that would bring Norman Powell. And here I want to be very transparent with you. Powell is an impact player. He scores. He has experience. He arrives and contributes. He has the type of profile that helps teams that want to score without depending on a single source, and he fits into the win now idea. But the burning question is this: at what cost? Because when you trade a 21-year-old with a high ceiling and add draft capital, you're not just making a roster move. You are making a statement. You are saying that the commitment to development, at least in this case, did not materialize. And that weighs heavily, because the Warriors' culture has always been proud of not giving up easily on the process itself. And I completely understand the fan who, upon hearing this, thinks, but what if Kuminga breaks out on another team? This is the phrase that haunts any franchise, because it's not uncommon for a player to need an environment, a role, patience, a sequence that he doesn't find where he is. And if that happens, if it takes off somewhere else, the narrative becomes a ghost. And the ghost gets a name, gets a face, gets replayed on national television. How did they let this guy out? The franchise knows this. The fans know this. Kuminga himself knows this. And then there is a detail that makes everything even more emotional: the rumor of interest from the Los Angeles Lakers. Because, let's be honest, there are trade-offs and trade-offs. There is a destiny that hurts less, and there is destiny that is salt in the wound. Imagining a player who was seen as part of the Warriors' future wearing the rival's jersey alongside established stars in an environment in which he can receive more minutes and more responsibility, this creates a type of discomfort that goes beyond basketball. It's like you're giving a valuable piece to someone who, historically, wants to see you fall. And no fan likes to feed their opponent. However, even with this inconvenience, real life in the NBA is not made up of emotions, but rather negotiations. Interests arise, teams call, agents apply pressure. And when it comes to exchange, the Warriors need to think about two things at the same time. They can't lose value, and they can't wait so long that they lose the chance to strengthen the squad now. Because Curry isn't waiting. Curry is carrying. He's delivering. And every season the team doesn't maximize, that is a season that never comes back. That's why I always say, what's at stake here isn't a one-off trade. It's a referendum on the direction of the Warriors. It's about the balance between continuing to compete today and not completely destroying tomorrow. It's the kind of decision that separates a team that makes smart adjustments from a team that despairs. And, for many people, the fear is exactly that: making a decision that smells like panic. At the same time, there is also another side that we need to admit. The Warriors cannot stand still. If there is an internal rupture, if there is a dissatisfied player, if there is an environment in which the situation has already become public, you run the risk of contaminating the locker room, of turning each interview into an interrogation, of making the season turn into a reality show of speculation. And that drains energy. This takes away focus. This takes a toll on someone who is just trying to play basketball and win games. So yes, sometimes the best solution is to resolve. It's taking action. It's closing one door to open another. And that's where those less flashy movements come in, but which are often the most intelligent. There is talk, for example, of complementary pieces that could be part of a larger negotiation. Young players who do the basics with discipline, who defend, who shoot when they need to, who do not require the ball to exist on the court. One name that has come up in conversations is that of Keon Ellis from the Sacramento Kings, as a kind of insurance for DeAnthony Melton, considering Melton's importance when he is healthy and his history that always calls for caution. A player like this is not enough to become a star, but he is enough to provide stability, to offer energy, to be useful on special nights. Civic. And in a long season, with playoffs on the horizon, utility becomes value. Do you see how this all connects? It's not just Kuminga for Powell or Kuminga for anyone else. It's a scenario construction. It's the front office trying to understand if it's possible to transform a problem into two solutions. A piece that scores now, and another piece that sustains the rotation, that protects the team from falls when someone gets hurt, that gives depth to face tough series. The Warriors have always been very good when thinking in layers, when they saw the squad as a system and not as loose names, and that's the kind of mentality I hope to see now. But I also need to speak to you with an open heart. Part of what makes this situation so impactful is the sense that it messes with the dynasty narrative. Because the Warriors' dynasty wasn't just about titles, it was continuity. It was the idea that the franchise could renew itself from within. It was the confidence that the environment transformed players. And when a young man with Kuminga's profile reaches the point of asking to leave, we are forced to face an uncomfortable question. Is this model more difficult to sustain today? Could it be that the era transition, which seemed controlled, is more turbulent than we want to admit? Perhaps the answer is simply that the NBA has changed, the players have changed, careers are managed differently, the pressure for results is different, and the Warriors, being giants, experience all of this at maximum volume. Any small spark turns into a fire on the internet. Any rumor becomes a headline within minutes. And the fans, who love this team, suffer together because they feel that each decision can accelerate or delay the end of a historic cycle. I'm not going to sell you a certainty here that no one has. I'm not going to say it's going to happen like this as if I own the future. What I can do as a content creator who follows the Warriors with you is separate things. There is indeed a sign of real tension. Yes, there is a market urgency because of the exchange deadline. There is indeed a conflict between development and title window. And yes, there is a risk of the Warriors losing a piece that could become very good in another context. And at the same time, there is also a chance that the Warriors can turn this into an immediate reinforcement that makes a real difference alongside Curry. And then I'll ask you the question back, the way I like to do it here at Warriors Family TV. Because I don't just want to talk to you. I want to talk to you. If you were in the boardroom for 5 minutes, what would you do? Would you try to hold Kuminga and find a real way to put him in the game, to give him minutes, to bet on this evolution with the risk of losing games along the way? Or would you make a trade now to bring in a ready-made player with the mindset that Curry deserves one last run with a more stable roster? And there's an even tougher question. If the exchange happens, what would coming back well mean to you? An experienced scorer? A defender who changes the team's level? Rotation depth? Draft picks to compensate? What is the package that, in your view, makes sense without looking like the Warriors are selling tomorrow too cheaply? Right here in the comments, because I will read. I will bring the most intelligent points to the next videos, and I want this channel to be a place where we understand what is happening without exaggeration and without panic, but also without pretending that everything is fine when it clearly isn't. If you've made it this far, leave a like to strengthen the work, subscribe so you don't miss updates on this case, because this story will have chapters yet, and activate the bell so you don't get left behind when the news accelerates. The only certainty now is that the Warriors are facing a decision that will mark their season. And depending on what happens, it could score much more than that. It can mark the way we will remember this period between "we can still win" and "we need to start again." And as a fan, I know this is the hardest part. Watching a team you love choose their path, knowing that each path has a price. We continue together. And I really want to know, in your opinion, who really has their bags packed? And that's exactly why I tell you, from now on, any detail becomes a spark. A different rotation, a missed interview, a DNP that no one expected. Everything could be a sign that the next bomb has already been set. Because when a team lives between the urgency of the present and the fear of sacrificing the future, there is no such thing as a small decision. There is only the decision that changes everything. If the Warriors make the wrong trade, the price could be high for years. But if he makes the right trade, the Bay Area could see another historic chapter with Curry leading a race that no one was betting on. And that's where I want to hear from you. Would you hold Kumi, go all the way and try to recover this relationship, or would you pull the trigger now and go all out for win now? Write in the comments, because your opinion here is worth a lot, and I want to bring this debate to the next videos. Now, if you want to truly understand this subject calmly, in context, and without confusion, do the following. Go to the pinned comment and click on the Warriors Analyses playlist. I left everything organized there, video by video, for you to connect the dots and see the complete picture. And I guarantee that after that, you will watch the next news with a different perspective. Click on the Warriors Analyses playlist in the pinned comment, watch the next video, and come back here to tell me. After seeing everything, do you think this change is inevitable? Or is it still possible to change the game from within?